Guys, I wanted to get a study out. I haven't put any out in a couple weeks. Just looking at the term Godhead, and I've been learning a lot about who God is from the scriptures and the one true God. And we know that God has a son. There's two divine beings in the universe. This is the gospel, the story of the Bible. It's about a father and a son, and it's incredible. And they came together to create all life. I mean, what would you do if you're all alone? You have a father and a son. Obviously, they wanted to have a family. They wanted children, and this is where we all come in, us and the angels. So we're going to go through a couple verses here. I learned this, and it's really cool. We're going to Acts 17:29. Let's read this. It says, "For as much then as we are the offspring of God, we ought not to think that the Godhead is like unto gold or silver or stone, graven by art and man's device." Okay, the Godhead, it's not anything that man can build, or it's not objects that are on the earth. It's so much higher than that. If you look at the term Godhead in the Greek, it's used 3 times in the New Testament. It's the word theos. It's almost identical to theos, the term for God in Greek. And it just means a general name of deity or divinity. Okay? The Godhead, divine, divinity, godlike, the God nature. So this is all the term means. So whenever we see the term Godhead, it just means the divinity of God, his nature. He's a divine being. So that is so cool to learn about that. So when we see the term God, when God said, well, God, we know that he's a divine being. He has a divine nature. We know that he's spirit. He's light. He's a mind. A mind is in him. And he can be present everywhere by his spirit, by his mind. We know that he's light. So we're going to jump around in a couple verses. We're going to look at... And think about this, you guys. The Son, remember, the Son was brought forth. He was brought out of God. And he was born, brought forth, begotten of the Father. He's just as divine as the Father. The fullness of the divinity that's in the Father, all that fullness is also in the Son, because the Father gave it to him, gave it to his Son. So it's incredible. That's why in Hebrews 1:8, check this out. The Father can say, notice this, but unto the Son he saith, thy throne, O God, is forever. Notice he doesn't say, thy throne, my God. The Father does not call the Son his God, but the Son is God. You know, he's a God. He has the God nature. But the Son, we know Jesus has a God, and we know that his God is his Father. Okay, that's the difference. There's a hierarchy to it. The Father was first. He's always been. He has no beginning, no end. But the Son does have a beginning. He came forth at a certain point and was born. So it's incredible. Let's look at 1 Corinthians 11:3. I always think of this verse when I hear the term Godhead. Let's read this. It says, "But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man." And notice this, "and the head of Christ is God." The head of Christ is God. Godhead. That's what when I hear the term Godhead, it simply means divinity. There's 2 divine beings in all existence in the universe, the Father and his Son. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever found out since I've been on this earth. There's nothing that I can compare it to. Finding out this beautiful information. 1 Corinthians 3:23. Notice this, you guys. It says, "And you are Christ's, and Christ is God's." You see that? Christ belongs to God because he's his Father. He gave birth to him. He gave birth to him, in a sense, twice. Once in heaven of himself, and then once on the earth. He impregnated Mary, and then Mary brought forth the Son of God, his second birth. He was born again. Fascinating stuff. Let's look at 2 Peter 1:3. We're going to read this 3 and 4. It says, according as his divine power, see, there's that divine power, has given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of him that has called us to glory and virtue. And who's the knowledge of God, the wisdom of God, the power of God? It's his Son. 1 Corinthians 1:24 and 1:30, if you want to check that out. And it says, and virtue, whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these you might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. Man, it's incredible. That's why we're called out of this world. We're to escape this world. That's why we're called into the wilderness, into the country, out of the cities. It's beautiful. But notice that we are partakers of the divine nature. That's God's nature. Him and his Son have the divine nature, and they offer it to us. This is the born again experience, you guys. This is when God, because we are given the Spirit of Christ, which is the Spirit of God. Okay, it's the same Spirit. So the life of Christ, his mind, is placed in us. So we're given that's how we have a new heart, and it gives us a new mind. This is how we are all in Christ and in God the Father. This is how it all works. It's incredible. It's so simple. The more I learn, and I used to think this stuff was so complicated, but God has to reveal this and teach this to you. It's not something that man's wisdom can teach. So it's beautiful. Let's look at Romans 1:20. Godhead's in this. It says, and I love this verse. I always I reference this verse a lot, and I call it visible illustrates invisible. And what I mean by that is that this verse tells us that everything that is in our visible natural world, nothing that has been tainted by man, but everything that's natural, our bodies, the ground, the sky, the oceans, nature, the animal kingdom, the anatomy of our bodies, everything, you guys, it's to teach us about the invisible things of heaven, the invisible things of God, even the Godhead. Notice it says, for the invisible things of him, it's God the Father, from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. Okay, so the invisible things of God from creation are seen, and they're understood by the things that are made, all the natural things in our world. It teaches us about God, okay, about the invisible things that we can't see, everything that's in heaven and all the other worlds that are beyond us. And it says, even his eternal power. What's his eternal power? That's Christ, his Son. It's beautiful. And Godhead, which is just simply divinity. It's divinity. We know there's two divine beings. Not three. There's not one. There's two. So that they are without excuse. This is how God teaches us all these things. So I think of our human body. Okay, we have a body. Well, why do we have a bunch of sets of two working together for one purpose? Think about that. We have one body. We stand out, stretch out our arms, we make a cross. Okay, but on this body, notice we have one head. It's because there's one God. But notice on that one head, we have two eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 2 lips, 2 sets of teeth, but one tongue. Isn't that beautiful? One mind. The mind of God. It's beautiful. It's because the Father and the Son are on the throne together. I love it. I absolutely love it. Let's look at Colossians 2:9. It says, is Father talking about a Son. It says, "For in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily." So for in him, in Christ, the Son who was brought forth, dwells all the fullness of divinity. Simply, that's what it means. He's a divine being, just as divine as his Father. It's just like a man and a woman come together, they give birth, and they have another man. Okay? So think about that. The one that's born is just as much human as the ones that created him, because it came from him. It has the same nature. They both have man's nature equally. It's like that with the Father and the Son. It's so simple. I can't believe it. Colossians 1:19. I like this verse. And it says, "For it pleased the Father that in him should all fullness dwell." That's just so beautiful. So anyways, you guys, I just wanted to go through those, and it's absolutely incredible that the Godhead in God, it's divinity, deity, divine. So awesome, guys. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. I just wanted to touch base a little bit, and I'll have more coming up soon. So all right, you guys, God bless, and we'll see you soon.